All right, everyone. Welcome to the November meeting for the ANC3C Safe, Sustainable, and Equitable Transportation Committee. We're going to start with some announcements, and then we're going to get to our agenda items for today. So, as always, I will be posting the agenda in the chat. And so everyone should have access to the agenda. I'll also share my screen so that people can look at the agenda as well. Can everyone see my screen? Perfect. Awesome. So just two announcements before we go ahead and get started. Sorry, just admitting people from the waiting room. So DDOT is working to improve the pedestrian crossing at the intersection of Porter Street Northwest and Connecticut Avenue Northwest. We know that that has been really a dangerous crossing, and also through construction it's been dangerous. And so we're the team met a commissioner, I believe Commissioner Pagas was there, and some other people met with DDOT on Tuesday, and so I believe that they're going to be working on making that more safer, getting more space for pedestrians, as well as putting more signage there, I believe. The other announcement is that the sidewalk in front of 3400 block of Connecticut Avenue is being replaced. So please continue to frequent the small businesses and support them. Those businesses are currently in front of construction, and so the more we can help them, the better it is. Great, those were my two announcements. And other than that, the two things on the agenda today, the first is requesting about installation of traffic calming measures in McLean Gardens. And so we'll go to that agenda first. And then the second one was added by Warren Gorlick, but I don't see him here, was talking about enforcement and reciprocity issues regarding tickets and I believe also parking in for Maryland and Virginia residents in DC. So is there anything that anyone would like to add to the agenda or add to the discussion today before we go ahead and go into our first agenda item? Okay. If there's none, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the first agenda item, which is the ANC3C McLean Gardens draft resolution. Can everyone see the resolution now in my screen, the draft resolution? Perfect. I'm going to share that in the chat as well, so that if people want to follow along or put comments there, they're more than welcome to. If anyone would like edit capabilities, especially Thad or Marta, like if either of you or if anyone else in the community would like those, please let me know. Ellen, you as well. But what I'll try and do is I'll try and go through this. You are welcome to unmute and make this a discussion, and we can go through ideas on language for the resolution and how to improve it and things like that. I thank you all for actually putting this draft together. I think it's already in a really good place, and so I'm hoping that maybe today we can finalize it and make it available to the general community and the other commissioners to get their buy-in as well for this. Before I start, do any of you all, so I think we'll just go line by line, just to make sure everything looks okay. But before I start, is there any overarching question or comments that anyone would like to make? Maybe, I don't know, actually, maybe it might be beneficial for the other people here, Thad, Marta, or Ellen, if either of you want to give a little bit of an introduction of what discussions you had, what caused this, and what your overarching goals are. Because I think one of the benefit of what you all have done is it's nice to figure out how we can do this in other parts of the community. So if you all have actually followed a process and gotten some ideas, I think it'd be nice to hear from you all what happened, and then where you are and what the processes are now.
Certainly. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So at McLean Gardens, we started a task force, a pedestrian and traffic safety task force. And a number of us got together back in March and did a walkthrough of the neighborhood and sort of put together a list of things that we would like to see to make the community safer, especially for pedestrians. There are a lot of people who live in our community who walk to school, to work, to shops, just to have, exercise. We are surrounded by a park. We have Giant and other stores nearby. And very recently, City Ridge opened just north of us, which has increased the amount of both pedestrian and vehicular traffic. They opened as you see in the draft resolution written so nicely. Ellen gets credit for the wording of these things. They opened a gate on 39th Street, which had previously been closed. It was Fannie Mae parking lot. But now the gate from City Ridge opens up into onto 39th, connecting into our community. So people have been crossing there both on foot and by car. Sidwell is also at the edge of our community, so people cut through to go there, and in some cases at pretty high speeds. So we've got this potentially dangerous combination of walkers and drivers, some of whom are not really paying attention. We've been noticing a lot of them are like looking at their phones and not really noticing what's going on around them. So we did the walkthrough, we came up with a list. We talked to Adam Hoyt, who is our ANC, and then Adam and I met with Christian, the Ward 3 liaison at DDOT, just to get a sense, right, of like what could be done. And he said he would be very happy to do a walkthrough with us, like a site visit. So we met with him, a number of us, both members of the task force and other members of the community. I apologize for the child in the background. I'm sorry, one second.
No worries at all.
Sorry about that. So Christian came to the walkthrough, and a number of the members of the task force came, as well as other members of the community. So the task force has been meeting over Zoom. The meetings are open to anyone else who would like to come and participate. And then I've been sending out sort of updates. So people gave feedback. It was quite a bit of people. There were about 15 people there. There were also 2 liaisons from the mayor's office who did the walkthrough. And so we just wanted to get a sense of like what types of things would be helpful. We wanted to give them a sense of this is what our community, what our neighborhood is like. Here are some of the changes that we're seeing. Here are some of the suggestions that we have. And we, as you see, had a lot of detailed suggestions. So some of the things we wanted to know, is it just a 311 request? And so what the DDOT liaison said is 311 requests are wonderful, but an ANC resolution would be very helpful because it would sort of draw DDOT's attention to those particular issues. And then of course they can reference those 311 requests. So that's what brings us here. Does that sort of give a little bit of background? And I don't know if Ellen or Thad would like to add anything.
Oh, thanks, Marta. That was a great summary. I would only add that you had asked, maybe how this could be like a model for other neighborhoods looking to do something. And I think we have the unusual benefit of being a neighborhood that is also a condo association. So we had kind of just like a built-in network of people and a way to communicate with them very easily. So it might be a little more challenging in other neighborhoods, but certainly doable if there's anything that's like a neighborhood listserv, just so you get like a critical mass of people who are willing to kind of do the walkthroughs and develop the resolution.
Thank you.
I would just add some important context for McLean Gardens that I think would apply to a lot of other parts of Ward 3 specifically, which is that the development of City Ridge and other issues, like parents using McLean Gardens as a cut through from Massachusetts to Wisconsin, definitely brought a lot more attention to pedestrian safety issues. But even absent that context, McLean Gardens was not built with a modern pedestrian safety infrastructure, and it's been allowed to continue that way, I think, because of these the lack of other contexts that's brought more density or more volume of traffic. If you walk around our neighborhood, you'll find lots of curb cuts that are just for like wheelchairs, for example. And there are no crosswalks or any other kind of infrastructure associated with these curb cuts. And most often people park right in front of them because it doesn't look like anything else that you would find in a more modern part of our city, right? And then another item is just the utter lack of crosswalks. McLean Gardens has very, very few crosswalks. And I think that's because when McLean Gardens was built, it didn't seem necessary to have that infrastructure, right? And I think you could say the same thing about a lot of parts of Ward 3 that are going to increasingly have to face this sort of conflict between how our streets, our sidewalks were designed and what we need to ensure that pedestrians and other people in our city are kept safe as we see more density, which invariably we will. And I'll just finish to kind of touch back onto having a model for addressing these issues. I think it was effective and helpful to identify that we do have mokers, which a lot of people that I've spoken to over the last, I don't know, 6 to 10 months weren't even aware who our Ward 3 liaisons were in the mayor's office and had never had any kind of interaction with them. I think when it comes to addressing issues like this, there's not necessarily one correct and 100% reliable way to go about getting the solutions you need, but knowing each possible avenue and pursuing each option, whether that be, you know, talking to Christian, the DDOT liaison, or talking to our mokers, or talking to your, you know, your council person's office and your ANC, knowing that you have these options and utilizing them, I think should be knowledge that we have across the community when we have issues like these that we want to address.
Awesome.
I'm so sorry. I just want to jump in just with bringing people together. The task force basically came out of me and another mom talking about how we're concerned about seeing kids basically not having places to cross. And then as soon as we started the conversation, it turned out there were a number of other people in the community who obviously had similar issues. So yeah, I think it could potentially be very easy to start something like this in other neighborhoods, even if they aren't a condo association. But I completely agree with Ellen that we have this sort of advantage in that sense. The other thing about Ward 3, it appears that especially with McLean Gardens is, as Thad was saying, a lot of these streets were designed to move traffic faster. So that's a lot of really soft curves where cars have no incentive to slow down. And you see that in other parts of Ward 3, but in other parts of the city, you actually do see narrower streets and things that force cars to go slower. So some of the things we're thinking about here is there something we could borrow from other parts of the neighborhood, the city, to try to encourage, you know, safer behavior.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. This was so helpful. I think this is so nice what you all have done, and I'm so happy that you brought this to us. And I do think there's a lot of people on the call that can learn from this, and this is also a good learning experience for us and our transportation committee. And the most exciting thing is you'll pretty soon have your own ANC. So, you know, I would suggest, you know, I mean, you all should do what you want to do, but I think it'd be a wonderful idea to take this infrastructure that you already have and just expand it to your entire ANC, because, you know, the pedestrian safety issues you identify here, like you said, they're going to be in other parts of your ANC, and then you'll have also the benefit of other commissioners that can coordinate with you. So this is absolutely wonderful. Thank you for doing this. Awesome. Yeah, and I am happy to help. You know, and so are going to be the other commissioners. You know, this committee was created because we have a lot of sort of you know, we have a lot of commissioners who appreciate pedestrian safety, and so I don't foresee trouble getting this passed, but I'll tell you all the next processes once we discuss the resolution of what's going to happen next and how we can ensure that this passes through our ANC at our meeting on Monday. So Going through this, now that's good, we have a background. So we'll go through this line by line and see if there's places we want to add stuff. I think this is good context that the neighborhood is situated in Northwest Washington, D.C., bounded, and how you're bounding the neighborhood. I'm just gonna add these to it just because DDOT sometimes is like, what are the official street names? Even though I know you said Northwest. Awesome. Exacerbated to 39th Street Northwest being used as a pass-through between Massachusetts Avenue and by the development of City Ridge, which in August 2020 opened to previously go with the north end. Perfect. I think this looks good. Anyone, and please just feel free to jump in via the chat or unmute yourself, and feel free to add if there's some other ideas you have as I'm going through this. Hey Warren, welcome to the meeting. Warren's another one of our committee members. Warren, we're just going through a resolution on safety on McLean Gardens, pedestrian installing of traffic calming measures in McLean Gardens. So I'll repaste that in the chat so that you have the document as well. Whereas many residents have noticed a rise in aggressive driving in the past few years, including the running of stop signs, speeding, and turning without signaling, a general increase in vehicular traffic with the opening of City Ridge and an accident. I'm going to call this a crash because we like to identify that accidents mean that there was, it was an unusual thing that happened, but saying it's a crash means it's something that's happening regularly. And so we're just going to update that language. Involving an overturned vehicle. Awesome. And you have the Twitter with the photo in there, I think. And so that's great. Residents have documented many locations that lack proper signage and other. And I'm just going to say that are identified in the 311 requests and below.
And we weren't able to get 311 requests in for all of the items that we want. So that's really a subset of the items. But we wanted to, sort of make a good showing that there had been a push for 311 in addition to this other, in addition to the resolution.
But we can keep adding them because your ANC meeting isn't until Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to add them as long as they're identified here. I mean, obviously, every time you add a 311 request, it's good because it's good to know which one they're doing and which one they aren't. And at least when we send this over, I think we'll tell Christian like, hey, all of these are related, so deal with all of them at the same time instead of piecemeal way.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Whereas these findings raise residential concerns about the safety of pedestrians, including elderly residents, children, and pets. Gonna add that, I assume, as well, because we're talking about curb cuts and speeding vehicles. All right, and submitted 300 requested service numbers. Perfect. This is great. All right. And this I had mentioned to you all that we want to place these, not that it matters too much, but in the resolution, we want to place the resolved clauses in terms of priorities. So I would say the most important ones go up front. And so if they're, and we don't have to be too careful with this. I mean, it's okay if we can't decide. As long as the more important ones go up front and the lead, not to say anything is less important, but the ones that are more critical go up front. I think that's most important. Be it resolved, ANC calls on DDOT to enhance the safety of the community with the following requested traffic measures. What is the next one? Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. If this is okay with you all. Is that okay with everyone? Like if I kind of bullet it like that?
Yeah.
Yes.
That raised crosswalks be installed at the following locations. Okay, this one makes sense.
So you're calling it raised sidewalks, but they're like basically speed tables, right? I mean,
Is that what they're?
I mean, I just Googled, it seemed like that. All right.
No, I think each of these is an actual request for a crosswalk, not a speed table.
Exactly. And that on DDOT's website, they have raised crosswalks as an option.
Okay. Okay. So DDOT is okay with us saying raised crosswalks.
Christian didn't say there were any problems with that, and it's also listed on the DDOT website, so I'm hoping
Perfect.
that works. If you want, I can check with him, but
I think it's okay because I think Warren's right. We just want to get the terminology right. So as long as it's on DDOT's website, I think we're okay. And I think as long as they don't just go and install crosswalks instead of raised crosswalks, that's one thing we'll just have to just keep in mind.
if they want to install crosswalks with a speed bump right there, that is another option. But I figure the engineers, right, who are going to take a look at this will probably have things in mind, if I understand things correctly.
Yeah, speed humps is a whole other like big thing to unwrap. As Warren knows, like trying to get a speed hump is very, very difficult. So I like the idea of if they have a raised crosswalk option, then let's just keep that. And then, you know, maybe this is one thing if you all can follow up with Christian, and feel free to CC me on those emails. You know, what I'll do is after this meeting, I'll send this draft out to the community, and then we can send Christian a draft, also get Christian's feedback on the draft. And so then we can ask him this one question.
Sounds great. I have one thing that Christian commented on during the walkthrough, which is that putting in raised crosswalks may be difficult in some locations because of drainage issues. And of course, as you walk through the neighborhood, you will find that most of the drains are right at crosswalks. So that might end up being an issue, which is why I figure it's a good idea to just be open to other suggestions. But this would be ideal.
Yeah, normally what DDOT does is they open traffic safety investigations for each of these. And so even if we ask for a raised crosswalk, they're going to do their investigation, and then they're going to do what they think is best. So I think we should ask them for the most important one. And maybe what we can do is here's one thing we can do. We can add how's that?
That's fine, except in all those places, there are no crosswalks. Like all the places that we list.
Okay.
Part of the problem is there is no crosswalk. So we would
Yeah.
still want a crosswalk at those locations, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
But to your point, like, I guess second best from a raised crosswalk would be a crosswalk plus, I guess, a speed hump right after or before it. But obviously it sounds like that's a challenge. So at a minimum, we desperately need the crosswalks.
You know, I'm going to leave this as it is. And then if they come back to us with like not having raised crosswalks, then maybe we can talk about speed humps, because speed humps require a whole other resolution. And I kind of don't want to get into that here right now because they'll just say no to that anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick question for you, Swale. Now, not to put the cart before the horse, but at a lot of the locations, or at least some of the locations where we're looking at crosswalks, we're also looking for stop signs, though
Mm.
we understand that stop signs are a different beast. If kind of expecting that a stop sign might not be considered either upfront by DDOT or after a traffic safety investigation, do we want to inject consideration for like pedestrian safety or pedestrian crosswalk signs? Or, I mean, maybe this isn't really a question for Christian, because I've seen that more often now, where some intersections now have like, you know, light up signs. I believe New Mexico and Idaho, or no, not New Mexico, Cathedral and Idaho, near that intersection, they have a crosswalk with light up signs that you can push a button for. So I would think that the community, if absent a stop sign at some of these crosswalks, we'd at least want something that would attract a little bit more attention to the fact that it's a pedestrian crossing than just the presence of the crosswalk itself. Is this a situation where we're just doing too much by saying, if not this, then this, and if not this, then this?
Yeah, I think that'll be too much, only because
Yeah.
like there's so many things, and honestly, again, like they will do whatever they think. Like they'll go to the location, they'll be like, what can we do here? What can we do there? So what I've added here is like urges DDOT to install the maximal amount of pedestrian safety infrastructure. The above request cannot be met for design reasons. I've written something like that. Does that make sense to everyone?
I
Yeah.
think that makes sense. I actually just got an email from Christian a couple hours ago because
Okay.
I had asked him, not to get into too many details here, but there's the intersection of 39th and Rodman as a traffic island, which you'll see referenced in here. And one of the things that we had discussed as a group was maybe this should be turned into a traffic circle, right? Like a proper traffic circle. It has a stop sign in one place, but not another place. So I asked him, like, what's the best way to ask this? And he said, ask for the individual things, the stop sign, the speed hump, the crosswalk, the whatever, and then we will take a look at that, right?
Okay.
And put in 311 individual 311 requests for each of those items.
Okay.
And that's what we basically have been doing. So I think that the thing you just added, I think is helpful. And yeah, I think they're just gonna look at this stuff, and our goal here is to draw their attention to all of the potential problems, see what happens.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Thank you. You know, now I realize how long this is. I kind of don't want to do this. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to delete this. So that's the safety of the community. Okay. Sure, I get all these. All right. Bumped out stop signs be installed at the following location. Should I put bumped out in quotes like that? Or
I think you can. As long as they know what we mean.
is this DDOT terminology? Do you know?
This is our task force terminology. Marta, do you know?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We have a member of the task force who had done some research on this in Adams Morgan, basically, I need to check exactly what the right wording is.
Let me Google it right now and see if I can find anything.
What are these things?
It's basically when you, rather than the stop sign being sort of behind the curb, you've added either an extra concrete thing that sticks out into the road, or you do like those bollards, whatever, like plastic poles, so that the stop sign is basically more visible to the driver because it's more in front of them rather than off to the side. And I actually realized we should probably add maybe a citation or a link to examples of that on DDOT's website.
Here's just an example that I found on Google of what they're calling it a curb bump out looks like. That one has like a yellow sign, but it's sort of the same idea. Let me look on DDOT's website.
All right, but so what you're talking about, it sounds like, is like when you're in Adams Morgan, when you're going eastbound on Columbia Road and you're making that right-hand turn at the big intersection of 18 that makes you kind of go all the way out into the road, like it's sort of a detour for the cars.
Not quite. It's more as if, you know, when sometimes what they'll do is the road will narrow when there is a crosswalk, if that makes sense. So the pedestrians have like a little bit of extra sidewalk that, let's say, lines up with the parking spaces so that the actual crosswalk is a little bit shorter in terms of it's narrower for the cars and the pedestrians have less of a road to cross.
Paulette, can you pull up on your screen like Google Street View?
Yeah.
If you go to Google Maps and you go to the intersection of Idaho and Cathedral to the southwest of McLean Gardens.
Oh, you're gonna have to help me.
Okay. Do
there we
you?
go.
Okay. Yeah. So you see Idaho now.
Yeah.
Okay. So put Street View there. So turn to the right. Or yeah, turn to the right, turn to the right, turn to the right, turn to the right. Okay. So it's not there. Oh, that's weird.
Probably an older video.
My street view is different than yours. Okay, let me do this. Can I put pictures in the chat, or is that not?
No, that's fine. I can also let you share your screen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you want to do that, that'd be fine too.
I just made you co-host so you can share your screen.
Okay. So in this picture, they hadn't put the bollards up yet. But do you see how they painted these lines here?
Yeah.
So now there are actual plastic bollards that section this off, so a car cannot just cut this corner either way, thereby making it safer for pedestrians to cross. And it also reduces the speed at which the vehicle can approach the intersection, right? Because it's more restrictive. And this is from 2018, but they do say bump out curbs.
Bump out curbs. All right, let's call it that then. And then we can post their tweet.
Yeah, so in some places in the city, you'll see the bollards here, and in other places in the city, there'll be actual new curb bump outs like this, like physical, it's a curb. It's not just a plastic,
It seems to me that the advantage of the bump out is that you can post a stop sign in it.
Right.
Whereas those are still on the grassy area on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I'm not, they might have moved this sign since they put the, since they actually finished doing this. It's a lot more common in like between like 14th Street and Georgia, and that whole area, like Petworth and Parkview and Columbia Heights, where they've put a lot of these in, or maybe like 14th Street going down towards like Logan Circle. You have a lot more like the actual physical curb bump outs.
There's a great example on Porter Street, sort of down past Connecticut Avenue in front of the Quebec House Apartments where I used to live.
Yep. I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that actually, if you give me the tweet where they said that, And if you all see what I've done, just give me the link to the tweet in the chat.
Yeah, sure.
And if you all see, like, I can start. So what I've called it is, I've called it a be resolved. ANC3C calls on DDoS to enhance the safety of the community by requesting that stop signs be installed with curbs. Stop signs with bump out curbs be installed at the following locations.
Mhm.
I think this should help them understand.
Yep.
I think these are well defined. Okay. Great. I'll fix the formatting later of this once we get off. Community. By requesting that the existing stop sign be bumped out. And this is the same thing as the bump out curb?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the previous one, we don't have stop signs at all, whereas
Right.
this one, these are existing stop signs.
Correct. And this was one thing that Christian said, it can be very hard to get stop signs installed because stop signs are not traffic calming measures. They're like traffic mitigation measures. So that's why he said we should also be asking for things like speed humps at those locations. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, and then you have the speed humps in the next one?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Do the speed humps all have 311 requests?
I believe so. I can check and let you know. Just give me 1 second.
Okay, those are the most important ones, I think. But again, I don't think it's too important. If Christian's already said this, then I think that's fine.
Yes, except for one, and we can put one in.
Okay, awesome.
I can send you, like, if we add more 311 requests, I'll just send them to you.
Awesome.
The question is whether you care if they need to be in that order, right? So I can tell you where to insert them.
Sure. The order isn't too important, but yeah, if you tell me where to insert them, then that's great. But if you already have them in order, then great, we should keep them in order. This one is okay.
So sorry, before you move on, you're missing a northwest in the bullet right above northwest on Newark Street at 38th Street, right where your cursor was a second ago.
Okay.
The last bullet.
Oh, right. Thank you.
This is Warren. I just want to comment that, I mean, I'm looking at photos on Google Images of raised sidewalks, and they're like, and I've experienced them in various places. I mean, they're like a speed hump from what I understand. I mean, they actually slow traffic down much more because they're actually
Like a speed table.
raised. Oh, they're like it's like they're 10 or 15 feet. It's just hard to imagine they're going to put in both speed bumps and raised sidewalks. I mean, I think it's one
I
of
don't
the,
think we need both in most cases, either or.
yeah.
I think we're sort of under the impression that raised sidewalk sounds less difficult based on what we've heard about speed humps, but anything we can get the cars to slow down.
There's far more speed humps and speed tables in DC than there are raised sidewalks. Raised sidewalks are at the intersection.
Raised crosswalks, you mean?
Crosswalks, yeah. I mean,
So all of these are at intersections. So the problem is that in our neighborhood, there are very few crosswalks at intersections. So we really want them to add crosswalks. And if they could be a raised crosswalk so that you build the speed hump into the crosswalk, that would be excellent. If they can't, and from what we understand from what Christian said, there can be drainage issues. As long as we get the crosswalk installed, if they can put a speed hump somewhere else, that would be great. We don't actually think they need these things, both of these things at the same locations. It's just, please look at this.
Okay.
Pedestrians need a safe place to cross.
Maybe it's wordsmithing. That's all I can do after the meeting, but I just some notion to DDOT that what you're basically asking for is alternatives, raised crosswalks or, or speed humps.
So this section on the speed humps, Marta, correct me if I'm wrong, these are not intersections, correct?
Correct.
These are like the middle of really, really long blocks that have nothing, no speed humps, no crosswalks, no stop signs anywhere. And so we think in these 6 areas, an actual speed hump would be appropriate in these places where a crosswalk is not appropriate.
Exactly.
Basically, whenever it's at an intersection, it's a raised crosswalk.
Yeah.
When it's not, okay. I think we should proceed with this. I mean, again, I think this will be such a huge victory, even if you get half of these. And I don't mean to say that in terms of like, get yourself ready for failure or whatever, but that's how horrible DDOT is, as we've known. But I like the idea of asking for all this and then putting pressure on it.
That's actually why we're asking for everything that we want, knowing that we might not get much of it, but something. The neighborhood just needs to be a little safer.
Okay. DDOT then has safety community requesting speed humps be installed at the following locations. So this one looks okay, I think. By requesting that a dedicated left turn arrow. Do you mean a left? This is a traffic light, right?
Correct. This is a traffic light of Wisconsin and Rodman. Southbound traffic on Wisconsin Avenue gets an arrow to go into Sidwell. Northbound traffic does not. With the current opening of the City Ridge garage, you have more people there. And basically what happens is not only does traffic get backed up, but people who are turning left onto Rodman from Wisconsin going northbound, then tend to hit the accelerator to not get hit by the oncoming traffic. And there's a pedestrian crosswalk there, right? So it'd be nice if Sidwell gets an arrow at the beginning of the cycle, at the end of the cycle to clear the intersection and make it safer for pedestrians. It'd be great if there would be a left arrow going in the other direction. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Is there I'll let DDOT decide this, but I think we can just ask for the traffic light. I was thinking about if there's like a slip lane, like a left turn slip lane on the other side, and if they want to install one on this side. Is there a left turn slip lane, or is there, if you do just turn from the left lane?
Yes.
There is a slip lane on the other side.
No, there is no slip lane.
Oh, there's
No.
okay, perfect. Then we don't need to ask for it. Okay.
Either way, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, they'll figure this out. Okay. Perfect. Like that. No turn on red signs be installed at the following locations. Okay. This is no right turn on red?
Yes.
When are right turn on reds becoming illegal, Warren? Do you remember?
2025, isn't it?
Oh.
Wait, is that right? It's only in 2025?
I'm
Are you joking?
fairly certain that's the case, yes.
Oh my God, I have to look at that legislation. Well, I mean, in fairness, they have a lot of work to do in terms of signage and stuff, but I didn't realize it was that early.
Yeah, this one, they might just be like, oh, it's happening anyways.
Yeah, it would require the mayor's signature and would not take effect until January 1, 2025.
So there's just one little added thing, which is that with City Ridge opening, they're
Mhm.
apparently required to do a traffic study once they sort of get to full capacity. That might take a while. So for example, what you see here for cars turning out of City Ridge's garage to go southbound, that's a brand new light that was installed maybe 3 months ago,
Okay.
right? So they're going to have to do a traffic study anyway. We're just trying to sort of get ahead of the curve here because
Okay.
it's already a little dangerous.
That's good. That's good. Okay. Perfect. I think that sounds good.
By the way, just as an aside, since if you guys, this isn't my neighborhood, but walking northbound from where I live in Woodley Park to the Wegmans, it's like it's almost like they've designed it deliberately to make it as hard as possible for pedestrians to find it. Both my wife and I separately, like if you go down the garage, which is one would seem, if you're coming northbound, that would be there's no sidewalk. It's like crazy, and there's no signage that tells you you have to keep walking northbound further and then go into the Wegmans. I mean, the whole thing seems to be designed deliberately to make it as hard as possible for pedestrians and cyclists to use it. I mean, I don't get it, but if you guys are involved in that, just know them.
Yeah, that's how everything is designed.
Well, I mean, if you go to the Giant, it's right on the street, right? You know, you go in, you don't have to walk 5 or 6 minutes around the whole complex to come into the back to go into the Giant in Wisconsin. You know, I'm just saying, it's pretty unusual design for a supermarket in an urban area.
I think roadside's kind of guiding vision was that Wegmans is such a I don't know, monolith that people would know it's there regardless of it being on the street, and they wanted to preserve sort of the classiness of the Fannie Mae building at the front there,
Okay.
and preserve it that way. I think they just figured, oh, people will know the Wegmans is here, and they certainly do get a lot of vehicular traffic there, especially on the weekends. I think lots of people come from Maryland, you know, in Moco County to that Wegmans, and across the whole city.
Chloe, I see you hovering over this one. This is sort of like a wishful thinking one. There
Okay.
is an island there, a traffic island. What we don't want is we don't want them to take it out. It is a slightly
Okay.
confusing intersection. This is the one where some cars have a stop sign here, some do not. There's a very, very long crosswalk where you can't see the cars that are coming up 39th to then speed up onto Rodman. They can't see the pedestrians. Like, we're asking for a stop sign there. We're asking for a speed hump. This is that intersection. And so
Got it.
If you want some context, while I'm already in Google Maps here. Let me.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is it. So
Oh, okay. I see. Oh my God. This is like,
so this is a whole thing there. So there's no stop sign here. There is a stop sign here, but this is very confusing to drivers about which side they're supposed to be coming from. So for instance, now this is going into City Ridge. There's also no stop sign here, which
okay.
until City Ridge opened was
Yeah.
not, I mean, it's bad, but it's not, you know, horrendously bad. But now it's horrendously bad because you get through traffic going into City Ridge. And because there's no stop sign here, and this is kind of a blind turn. So if somebody's coming down here at speed, a car here won't see them until they're here.
it's kind of a miracle there hasn't been a crash there.
I know
Yeah.
that place looks horrible.
So you see that's that really, really long crosswalk, which in an ideal world, we would love it if they could expand that traffic island and turn this into a proper circle. Because what happens is where Thad is sort of showing us right now, to the left of the island, cars are supposed to go to the right of the island if
But
they're
they come
coming,
through this way.
and instead they go there, which is the wrong way.
Yeah, so if a car is traveling southbound this way, instead of going like that, they go this way.
Right. Okay.
Plus, you see there's no crosswalk there. There's no crosswalk across the street. There's no crosswalk.
They're
at
supposed to
Target.
be there. Yeah. Those are
Yeah.
all called like official crosswalks, even if they haven't drawn it. Like anytime you have a curb like that, like people are supposed to be able to cross the street. Okay, so this one,
The drivers don't seem to realize that, right? And
Right.
so often you have like vans coming up, they're like looking at their phone, they're accelerating and not looking for pedestrians.
Yeah, this is a straight stretch that extends well into the neighborhood with not a single crosswalk that's marked until you get all the way down here.
It's a good 3 blocks. And so they speed up
Yeah,
and then they take the right onto Rodman with no idea that there might be a pedestrian crossing Rodman and they have to slam on the brakes.
There's also one
So-
other, oh, I'm sorry. There's also
No,
one
no,
other
it's
thing
good.
that Christian pointed out, which is that intersection that Thad was just showing us.
Mhm.
Cars in the photo that we could see there on Street View, the cars were not parked all the way up to the crosswalk. They usually are. And
okay.
Christian said that that is actually against the rules. Like basically if they come in, oh, you see that? You see how they're parked right there?
Yeah,
So basically if they come in and start messing with this, they're going to be having to move these back
Oh.
because you're no longer allowed to park that close to a crosswalk. So that will help, but it won't slow down these cars that come around this exact curve.
right. Yeah, I feel like this is trying to think. So I wrote something here. How about we do this? Let me try this because I feel like there could be other solutions here, right? So requesting that pedestrian, you all can see my screen, right? Pedestrian safety. Like I'm trying to make them say like do something. Pedestrian crossing be prioritized. Pedestrian safety and crossing be prioritized at the intersection of by increasing the size of the traffic island. Oh. Yeah. So that pedestrians using a long crosswalk across roads can have a safe haven for the car, or alternatively, turn this traffic island into a traffic circle and at a minimum add crosswalks at all intersections and reduce their size as much as possible. It's a really wordy, but I'm trying to see if we can just get something in there. Does this make sense? Is there a better way to word it? I think you all can get in there and edit it if you need to. So
I don't have a problem with the wordiness. I think it says what we want it to say.
okay.
I agree.
All right. We got. All right. This one is calls indeed on enhanced community. Speed limit signs for 20 miles will be installed at the. Okay, good. Is that the actual speed limit on that road?
That is in keeping with the existing speed limits. That's not a new speed limit.
Perfect. Call indeed on enhanced community. Yeah, to the following locations. Okay, awesome. Enhanced safety community with the following request.
So I actually just realized this last one. I don't know if the rest
Huh.
of you have noticed. They're repaving Rodman right now, like today. So they may just repaint those lines right away. But that's actually the location of that crash that we reference.
Okay, perfect.
I would be kind of surprised if they do. They were faded almost to the point of being completely gone. And so I think it's good to keep it on there just in case.
And we have a 311 request in for that, so.
Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. I think I want to add one more thing, which is like, be it resolved. Let me see how you all feel about this. That ANC3C urges DDOT to treat these individual requests in a systemic way so as to maximize pedestrian safety as opposed to a piecemeal approach, right? So like, I think this kind of gets to some of the things you all were saying about like, if they don't install a raised crosswalk, then maybe later they can install something else. Like they kind of like treat this as a whole rather than individual requests. How does that sound? I see some nodding heads. Perfect. The only other thing I added here was usually it's the chair and the commissioner for 3C06, but I added myself because I know that if Adam's busy and I need to represent you all, then you know, you have some representation. And I think the way this works is starting January 2nd, that I think you all can maybe pass this whole thing again.
Yeah.
Or something
Yeah.
like that. And then just put your commissioner thing on it so that.
We can also refer to this resolution.
Yep. Exactly. Cool. How does this look to everyone? Everyone? Okay, great. So what I will do is I will go and just clean up some of the formatting, and I'm going to send this to you all, and I'll send it to the commissioners, and then it'll be put on our public website. So the way this works is, Commissioner, on Monday, this is, if you look at the agenda, you'll see where this is on the agenda. So our meeting starts at 7:30. Let me just actually paste the agenda in the chat so that everyone knows how to get to it.
Has the registration link been posted yet, or is that still to come?
Let's see, just checking right now. Yep, the registration link is here.
It is live.
Yep, let me give you that right now. So here it is. So what I encourage you all to do, well, one, register. So you see that you are, there's consent calendar. That stuff's gonna just get approved on consent. Okay, there's the Kosovo Chancery. So that goes before you all. It's hard for me to say, but I anticipate that thing taking at least 30 minutes. But it's difficult for me to say. So what I suggest is that you all be ready to join the meeting around 8. I think that's a safe bet. But just in case at least one of you join at 7:30, just in case like the Kosovo Chancery gets pulled or something like that, and we need to go to yours. But before that, the other thing I encourage you all to do is, starting tomorrow morning, get everyone in your community to email that email address. And this goes to all the commissioners, and request them to vote yes on this resolution. And also go ahead and add, this is where you can add like all types of written testimony you want, right? Like add a personal story about, how you saw the crash, talk about like how, this is really difficult for families with kids. This is really difficult for, all the stuff you want to add in writing. Go ahead and add it, and if you get as many emails as you can. I think over here, like thoughtful written things count, but, thoughtful written things from you all will be really helpful. But if you can get a volume of emails too, right? So you can get like a bunch of people just sending like, please pass this, we need traffic safety, even if it's just one line, we count all those. And well, at least I count all those, and then I use it as evidence that we should pass it. So please get people to send emails to that email address.
Would it be a good idea to kind of develop a very, very simple template to distribute and say, and add your own personal experience with pedestrian safety issues on top of this existing 1 or 2 line statement saying, please vote yes on this resolution?
Yeah, however you all want to do it. I think it works well. If you also want to collect like all signatures on one email or something, that's also fine. It's just, I find that's a little bit more burden on you all, but whatever you want to do. So if you want to collect signatures, some people want to collect signatures, like, you know, you want to create a Google form where people electronically sign with their address. Just make sure when people send emails, they include their address, or if you collect signatures that you include their address in, so that we know it's an ANC3C. But yeah, so starting tomorrow morning, I just encourage you all to flood that email address with like requests to pass the resolution. Cool. I think this will get passed. I don't foresee difficulties, but you never know. You know, this is it's an interesting ANC. So we'll see what happens. Also, just be aware that once stuff like this gets posted online, inevitably someone might write against this. So I will email the 3 of you who I've been emailing with if something like that comes up, and be like, hey, can you please help me respond to this or something like that? Because someone's going to say something like, this is going to reduce the number of parking spots and I don't want that to happen. Or they're going to say, I drive here all the time and it's ridiculous that you're slowing cars down. People say all types of stuff all the time. So yeah.
Do you have a solid sense, Swale, of, so obviously if the resolution is passed, DDOT completes studies. At that point, DDOT develops basically a proposal saying, here are things that we're going to do. Is it fair or appropriate for us to explain to the community that this is not the end of our input? You know, once DDOT, even after DDOT completes its studies and proposes, you know, certain items, however many they want to implement, the community is still involved and can still vocalize how it feels about that, what DDOT is proposing. Is it appropriate for us to say that ahead of time?
I don't want you all to promise more than you can deliver.
Right.
So I think the thing is, DDOT might not ask for more input. What they usually do is once they're done with their plan, they tell you, this is what we're doing. Our engineers decided this, right? And at that point, you can request that they stop it or they change it or something like that, right? Yeah. Now, DDOT takes such a long time that, I mean, I don't know if Christian told you, but it's like at least minimum 120 days, if not 180 days, something like that, right? So they take such a long time that you will have time to change and comment. And especially, like, I would say if nothing happens into January, I highly suggest you all pass another resolution referring to this and asking them to expedite it and make any updates that you want to make. So yeah, I think what you can tell the community members is, this is the start of the process. DDOT is going to do a traffic safety investigation to determine what's going to be done. And then as that traffic safety investigation is going on, we have more opportunity to provide input and comment. That's what I would say.
I guess my recent point of reference is the whole Chain Bridge 3D situation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the community did successfully say, wait a second, DDOT, this is not serving our community. You know, now I don't really anticipate DDOT doing something similar with McLean Gardens. I don't think they're going to say, oh, instead of doing any of this stuff, let's just close all McLean Gardens to through traffic or something like that. But I thought that at least it is kind of an example of where, you know, the community still has voice even after you've requested that DDOT consider some type of remediation. Yeah.
What I wouldn't say though in that email is, I wouldn't say that DDOT will come back and ask us if this is okay. Because I know with speed humps on Rodman, and I think Warren, this happened with speed humps on Cortland too. We requested it and then they just came and installed them. Like they picked 3 locations and they installed them. So you know, like I would, they either work really fast or they work really slow. And so I don't think you might just wake up one morning and some of this stuff is done. That's how it might work.
Well, actually, in Cortland Place, I was badgering Christian to badger the DDOT people, and first they were delaying and delaying. Then Yeah, and then Christian, and then they said, well, it's not gonna be this quarter, it's gonna be the next quarter. But then they came back, as kind of what you were saying, Swali, and said, oh, we can do it after all this quarter.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you all. I think this was very helpful, and thank you for bringing this. I'm hoping that this is helpful to other people too who want to do something like this, and maybe our ANC can in the future do a walkthrough like this on certain danger parts and try and get DDOT to do something. So really appreciate you all doing this.
By the way, just let me mention, because you're talking about like right in your SMD, Swally, or right at the corner of your SMD, I have now been hit twice, and I've seen other near hits. When drivers are going northbound, on Connecticut Avenue, and they're making a left on Macomb, right by the library.
Mhm.
It's kind of what I think it was Ellen was saying earlier.
Yeah.
They have to go super fast to make that left turn because there's southbound traffic in Connecticut going the other way. I mean, and it's like at some point, it's like, well, either I'm gonna hit or I'm gonna hit a pedestrian. So I'd rather not be the one getting hit. So I'll just hit there's gotta be some kind of left turn signal or something, rather than just making northbound cars dodge the southbound traffic when they're making that left there. But I mean, it's similar. I mean, when you were describing the issues, and that's right at the intersection, I think, where your district starts, if I'm not mistaken, but just
if I win and where my district will start in January, it's not there right now. But yeah, so I think with that, Warren, the Connecticut Avenue redesign, they actually have a left turn pocket there, and I think they're going to implement
Oh,
So
okay, I didn't realize that. Okay, well,
I mean, I'm hoping that's in one of the proposals, so I'm hoping they do something like that. But you're absolutely right. That's a dangerous one too. You've been hit on foot or on your bike?
no, I have, but I had one of those there, but I came so close to getting hit. Yeah, I was walking at the time, so it was even higher. Yeah, it's just stuff. Yeah.
Great. Cool. Well, thank you all. So we can move to the next item on the agenda. Warren, this was your item, so I'm going to let you decide how much you want to talk about it and how you want to introduce it and stuff like that.
Okay, so there's just this whole thing about let's do more traffic enforcement. I'm very focused on the lack of reciprocity, because we talk a great talk about more traffic enforcements, more. I'm in favor of automated, red light cameras, stop sign cameras, speed cameras, but it does not apply to Maryland and Virginia drivers. And it is just crazy. So we're going to find ourselves crazy amounts where apparently DDOT is either thinking about or is already going to do points on licenses, inform insurance companies. So your car insurance, auto insurance rates go up, but yet none of this applies. I'm sort of at a loss because DC Council last year passed some kind of resolution instructing the mayor to enter into discussions with the governors to do traffic reciprocity. And she admitted later that she ignored it. There's a DC-ist article about that. She admitted that she just didn't do it. So nothing, I mean, nothing our ANC is probably gonna help, but maybe I'm just, I'm looking for ideas at this point. There's a lot of reckless driving by, like, say, Maryland drivers going down to the private schools, Wisp, Murray, Sidwell, Georgetown Day School, and National Cathedral. I mean, that's a large part of a very large part of the traffic now. And it's
and a transition to no right on red is going to be a huge problem for Maryland drivers. I mean, they already don't regard the traffic laws.
And they won't have to. And yet the district, ironically, if you get a speed camera ticket, as I have on Connecticut Avenue on the Maryland side, I had to pay the ticket to get my registration renewed. I mean, we do enforce reciprocity, they just don't do it the other way. I mean, I don't know why we do that, but maybe I suspect it has something to do with home rule. But Just noting
Yeah.
that, and then, separate and distinct is the enforcement issue. I mean, I don't know how exactly, I forgot now exactly how it came up, but in my neighborhood, it's a big parking area for both Murray and Wiss. They're on opposite sides of my house, and students just park there with impunity. If you call 311, nothing happens, even if you put it, I've tried both ways, putting in the online system and calling them to see if one might be more effective than the other. But neither seems to work. Like, even if I call them at say 10 in the morning, by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, before the students have usually left, there's still no ticket on their car. Now obviously they're allowed to park 2 hours without penalty, but not anything above that. So that, I don't know, on the enforcement one, I'm slightly more optimistic that possibly a resolution or something might, if we call on DDOT to enhance enforcement, I don't know, that one might just if we had some whereas clauses in there, whereas local residents have noted that they've entered information in the 311 system, but it seems to be ignored, not acted upon, that sort of whereas, and then resolve that DDOT, enhance traffic enforcement to the extent possible. I think probably, they just look at cost benefit studies on the side streets. They're probably not collecting as much revenue as if they're just going up and down Connecticut Avenue looking for scofflaws and parking and things like that.
Has
So,
anybody ever petitioned or FOIA'd like a breakdown of how parking enforcement is allotted by ward, like manpower wise?
That's a great question. I certainly have not. I don't
I have not either.
I'd be curious to know what that looks like and how representative it is of, increasing density along Connecticut Avenue in Wisconsin.
Yeah, well, and that's one. Tell me your observations. What my observation is in Georgetown on the residential streets, they're incredibly vigilant. Like on a Friday and Saturday night, they have all kinds of people enforcing, because only one side of the street are non-residents allowed to park.
That might be a reflection of how engaged Georgetown property owners are in, petitioning the city for active enforcement in those areas.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just, thanks for putting on the agenda. I just, it's just every time people talk about increased enforcement or something like that, like I'm thinking, well, one, the enforcement's not really happening now, and two, I'm focusing more on Maryland than Virginia because it's 90%. For whatever reason, it's much more Maryland. They're just, they can ignore it with impunity anyway. So, I get a little concerned when, I'm hearing stories about people getting $200 stop sign tickets, like at the corner of 37th Street, as they apparently are, and knowing that only DC residents are going to have to pay those tickets, not a single, we're penalizing DC residents really high, but not imposing the same rules on, about half the drivers who are coming from foreign non-DC location. So I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. I don't think we can keep talking about more enforcement and things like that without facing the reciprocity issue and the lack of attentiveness by DDOT. Anyway, so
yeah, the reciprocity issue, I agree with you. I don't know what else we can do. I mean, you can try and force the mayor's hand, but if the council already asked, like, we can't do much. The other one though, so we have asked before that DDOT take over some enforcement from police and things like that, but already like DDOT is already underfunded on enforcement. So maybe, probably not going to solve this tonight, but I like the idea, and that I like your idea of maybe like FOIAing like how this is funded and maybe talking about improving, targeted improvement of parking enforcement. That might be one thing to do, especially with, so that could be one thing we can ask Christian, and maybe Warren, if you wanted to email Christian and CC me, and ask him like, how can we improve parking enforcement? Like, how do we request more funds for parking enforcement? And see what he says. And then if not, maybe we can try and think about a resolution next month or something like that.
Okay, but yeah, I like the idea of, yeah, getting a little bit more information first and,
Yep.
yeah. Okay, we don't have to belabor the point. You spent a lot of time on on the first issue, which is great. Yeah. But
This is why we're here, and we can always continue this next month too. Awesome. Any other thoughts on any of the two things or anything else anyone wants to bring up in terms of transportation or pedestrian safety or anything like that?
The Better Bus survey, I think, is almost over. So I think it would be worthwhile for 3C to put it out there that, you know,
Oh, the Better Bus
get
survey?
it in while you still can, because
Oh, yeah.
I do feel like Ward 3 is pretty woefully neglected in WMATA's bus line plans.
Do you have a link to that, Thad?
Let me see if I can find it. I know
put
Gigi
it-
Wash had just shared something about it. Let me see if I can find it on their Twitter.
Did they ask any question? My big thing has always been like, why couldn't there be high-speed bus lines like what you have on First and Second Avenue in New York? As congested, it's amazing how fast you can get down from, say, 86th Street on the east side to 14th Street in minutes, because they have these high-speed bus lane. They put a lot of money into it. High-speed bus lanes, dedicated lanes, relatively few stops, and you have to buy your ticket from kiosks outside the bus. So when you enter, you have like 10 seconds and the doors close, right? And you're done. So I would love to be able to speed from Calvert Street up to, you know, Chevy Chase Circle in 5 minutes, which
It's a pretty general survey.
Mhm.
So you can kind of advocate to your heart's content,
Yeah.
because as I filled it out a few weeks ago, and my impression mostly was that it was not like specific about where you live or, you know, any actual like identifiable lines or anything about that. It was just like, do you take the bus? If you don't, why don't you take the bus?
Yeah.
What would make you take the bus more? You know,
Yeah.
things like that. But at the same time, that definitely gives you the capability to advocate for specific improvements, which I think would be the best way for people in 3C
Yeah.
to take advantage of it, especially for our area, because I can't recall. Swallow, do you know? I feel like it was maybe earlier this year that
Mhm.
WMATA put out its like projected line improvements,
Yeah,
and there was nothing. In
nothing
Ward 3.
here. Yeah. They didn't do
Absolutely
anything.
nothing.
They didn't do anything here. Okay, this is helpful. I think what I'll do is I'll shoot an email to the listserv as well for people to fill this out. That way people are doing that too, but I put it in the minutes. Thank you. Do you remember when the deadline is? Because I can't find it on the website.
So yesterday, Gigi Wash said just a few days left to take WMATA's Better Bus survey.
November.
November 11th? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I will send this out. Great. Wonderful meeting all. Thanks. Anything else? Cool. Well, it was nice seeing you all. Thank you all for doing this and making communities safer. And then, yeah, go ahead, Ellen.
I just wanted to thank you so much for your time. This is my first time participating in anything like this. I like to see how it works, and I really appreciate all of your service.
Of course, thank you. And yeah, and I look forward to appreciating all your service when you start this in 3A, and then we'll work together on this stuff.
I'd like to second Ellen's comments. Thank you so much.
Of course, always. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. I'll see you all Monday.
Take
Bye.
care.